So today's session is all about recruiting for your cannabis business. I am very, very pleased to be doing this session and to be doing it with you, Shawnee, and I hope that this is the beginning of a budding relationship and things to come. Just a reminder for you who is on as a participant and anybody who might be watching this recording later. We did have a session last night on the social equity groups. So that recording and this recording will be uploaded into our Dropbox and publicly available within the next 24 hours. And then the other thing is, if you have feedback for us, especially feedback that you want to take into the state, because we just had a meeting with the governor's office yesterday, and there was lots of conversation about things that could possibly be changed with the social equity program. They're looking for that feedback. So if you have feedback, please feel free to send that to us and we will pass that information on. You guys know that I advocate for you as much as possible in every arena and avenue that I can. One of the things that did come out of the conversation, because we sat there on the phone for 90 minutes and nobody said it. So I was like, wait a minute, what's up with the licenses? The response was, they're hopeful that they'll come out sooner rather than later. And the actual exact wording was sooner than you think. So the date that was floated was, hopefully early January, but don't hold them to the date. My response was, I don't hold you all to any date because every date that I've heard is already passed. But as I get information, if I get information, I will let you know. We will be having another meeting with them in January. I think this is going to be like a regular ongoing thing, hopefully. This is the first meeting that we as technical assistance partners have actually had directly with the governor's office. We've met with DCEO, and we actually didn't even have our first group meeting with DCEO until I think that might have been last month. But I'm hoping that this is a step in the right direction, and I will obviously do everything that I can, to advocate for you guys and to pass on information to you guys. And I even asked the representative from the governor's office if she would be willing to come onto a webinar. So, and she said yes. So hopefully we'll be getting something scheduled in the new year for that. So, I don't really have any other announcements. If you have a question, put it in the Q&A box, and I'll moderate, with the questions. And Shawnee, we can either do them as you go through, or we can do them at the end. I'll leave that up to you, because I don't want to interrupt your flow. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Shawnee Williams from Illinois Equity Staffing. I am applauding myself for remembering both your name and the name of your business.
Thank you. I appreciate it. My computer has frozen in the last 5 minutes, probably 3 times. So I just closed down my Google Chrome and I'm restarting it. Okay. So thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure as always. I met Trisha through actually a client that was like, I don't know why you guys have not met each other yet. You guys are both Black women working in the cannabis industry. So I met Trisha. We had our first, we connected virtually. We had our first call. I think I want to say like an hour and a half. We just chatted about our many frustrations of this game and what we've been doing both as business owners in the industry. I too am working in a working group to lobby to get a lot of these changes done. We've met with a lot of state representatives in the last, I want to say 2 months. There is a working group of state representatives that's working with the governor's office. And I think those changes are actually going to happen. The changes that we're asking for. I don't think it's going to affect the first round of licenses, but we think that we've been heard, and hopefully moving forward, things are smooth and things are great with the state of Illinois, because we have been off to rather what I would say a rough start. But I think things will be looking up in the near future. But I'm here actually to talk to you guys about recruiting for your cannabis business. So really quickly, we're going to talk about, I'm going to do an intro. We're going to talk about company culture, job descriptions, job boards, pipeline management, and due diligence, and what due diligence is. Since it's really only Danielle on the call, actually, no, I think do we have someone else?
Yeah, we had a couple other people join.
Okay, cool. So we have Melvin and Victoria and Danielle. So we have a few other people who hopped on. And so what we were saying is, because we have such a small group, I wanted to do intros with you guys. So if you guys want to introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, what you currently do, and what you'd like to do in the cannabis industry. If you're not currently in the cannabis industry, that would be great. And let's start with Danielle.
And Danielle, you can type in, actually, you know what? I could turn on microphones. I don't know where people might be.
Oh, you got it on webinar?
But I can, you know what? I could turn on the microphone. So let me do that. Okay, Danielle, can you, no, she has to unmute. Okay, Danielle, you can unmute yourself if you want and go ahead and introduce yourself.
Or if it's easier, you can put it in the chat. It's up to you.
Yeah, it's up to you. You don't have to talk. You can type in the chat too if you want. And then I'll go ahead and I'll allow to talk for Melvin and Victoria as well.
Okay.
Okay, Melvin's mic is on.
Okay.
Melvin,
yes,
yeah, we can hear you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Melvin Cartwright. I'm from the south side of Chicago. I currently own an e-commerce business, and I'm looking to branch off into like doing transport or like have like a dispensary in Illinois.
Awesome. Sounds good. Did you apply, or are you going to apply second round?
I want to apply second round.
Got it. Awesome. Thank you.
Perfect timing.
No problem.
Victoria.
Okay, I just unmuted or just allow Victoria to talk.
Hello.
Yes. Hi, Victoria.
Hi. How are you?
Good.
Yeah. First, thanks for having this webinar. And my name is Victoria, and I applied for a dispensary license first round. Of course, did not get selected. And I am part of a cultivation application right now. So, it's just a wait and see. I have, urban ag background. So, I'm excited about the possibilities of growing, and as well as, if not that, finding my space within the cannabis industry.
Okay. Where are you from? Chicago?
Yes, Chicago, Woodlawn.
Okay, awesome. Great having you.
Mm-hmm.
Danielle, were you able to unmute or put your intro in the chat?
Yes, I'm here. I unmuted.
Okay.
Well, basically, me and a few friends, we're trying to start up the cultivating to grow cannabis. We held off for the first round when everything started getting hectic, and all this money was being put out, and people losing money. So we just decided to hold back to see if anything was going to change for the second round. So hopefully we can go in for the second round. I don't know yet, but
what do you currently do?
I'm a claim adjuster.
Okay.
So,
and are you also from Chicago?
Yes, I'm from Illinois. But I do a lot of traveling. So, I do know other people. I mean, if we can't do Illinois as an option, I do have someone that is a head grower and been a head grower for 50 years that started in Florida, but he's in Jamaica. He has a business going in Jamaica. So it's just about getting to Jamaica because I know things there is easier from what he was saying, as long as you know someone that has a business there. So we're weighing our options.
Awesome. Awesome. Welcome, Danielle.
Thank you.
Cool. So my name is Shawnee Williams, and I'm obviously going to be facilitating the workshop today, just talking about recruiting. I'm an entrepreneur in the cannabis industry, and I am the co-founder of a company called Illinois Equity Staffing. So we're a WB MBE certified ancillary cannabis business. So we provide human resources support, education and training, corporate training, and recruiting in the cannabis and hemp industry here in Illinois and all over the US. We have kind of a lean or a focus though. Our main foundational initiative is diversity, equity, and inclusion. So obviously, I'm sure you guys have heard time and time again, the industry does not look anything how it should. It's mostly 80% white males. And it doesn't look like anyone who's actually been affected by the war on drugs. And so the huge initiative for my company is to make sure that we kind of turn that around, and that as opportunities in business, especially business opportunities and employment opportunities arise, that there's enough support from a human resources perspective to make sure that there's a diverse and inclusive environment in the cannabis industry. So I come from a very corporate background. I have a bachelor's and a master's in business, and I am a member of Chicago NORML, the Minority Cannabis Business Association, Minorities for Medical Marijuana, Illinois Women in Cannabis, and the Cannabis Equity Coalition. I'm also a part of SEEN. I just kind of help out with SEEN. That's the Social Equity Empowerment Network that kind of was founded here in Chicago by Belisha and Natasha. And I'm also a member of BIPOCAN, which is Black, Indigenous, People of Color in the cannabis industry. And then lastly, I serve on the advisory committee for Cannabisiac, which is like a co-working business accelerator program. And they're founded in Florida, but they are nationwide. And then I serve on the Human Resources Committee of the National Cannabis Industry Association. For more information about my company, you can go to illinoisequitystaffing.com, or you can visit us on Instagram or Facebook. So the first thing I want to talk about is company culture. Basically, what is it and why is it so important as far as human resources and recruiting goes? I think it's really important that as you get ready to recruit for your teams, that company culture is top of mind, and I'm going to tell you guys why. So what's going to make an employee stick it out with you? Once you hire an employee on, especially if there's someone who is kind of, I would say, taking the risk with you, they're not getting paid as much. They're really just trying to help you get the business off the ground. What's going to make that employee stick it out with you? What will keep them from taking a higher paying job? What creates loyalty? What creates retention? And what's going to create a high morale as your team starts to grow? Well, that's your company culture. And I can't stress enough how important it is to have a company culture and to direct and drive your own company culture, especially in the cannabis industry. So what is going to set you apart from the competition? If the easiest way for me to explain it to you guys is your company culture is really like your brand for your employees. So you know how marketing really focuses on the brand for the customer. I would say company culture and the human resources department really focuses on the brand as far as the internal employee and the candidates go. So how everyone behaves as a whole while at work, that's your company culture, how they conduct themselves, what your values are, what your initiatives are, what your goals are, any policies and procedures that you may have in place, your codes of ethics, it starts to shape your company culture separately, but it becomes one big idea at the end. So there's a
Shawnee, I don't know if you can hear me, but I think your mic just went out. Was that me?
I feel like I may cut out.
You did cut out.
Okay. Where did I leave? Did you hear about the the management style leadership?
No.
Okay. So what I was saying was there's a few things that affect your company culture. And the first one is going to be the leadership style of your management team. So when it comes to your management team, are you guys authoritative? Do you guys have to go through, are you servant leaders? Do you provide support in developing your employees? Are you more about getting your employees promoted than anything else? So that really is going to play a role and affect your company culture overall. So keep in mind, when you're bringing people on to lead the team and to lead with you, they're going to affect your company culture more than you probably know. The goals that you set in place, whether it's revenue goals or how many clients you have or your sales for the year or per quarter, whatever that is, those types of goals are going to set your company culture as well. And then this is really important to me, but this particular, the next item is the aggregate experience of your workforce. So basically that means what's the background and experience of all the people that are on your team. And the reason why I say it's the most important is because typically entrepreneurs, hiring managers, anyone in charge, they tend to hire people that are just like them. And it's human nature. It's really not necessary. It's a bias. It's unconscious, but it's human nature. So what makes you more comfortable? What makes you more comfortable are people that you can relate to, that share a similar background and story as you. So if you have a team or a workforce that's full of basically mini yous, there's not a lot of diversity, there's probably not a lot of inclusion, and you probably aren't very innovative either as a team. But if you are constantly thinking about diversity and inclusion, making sure that everyone's coming from different backgrounds and has different experiences to bring to the table, most likely you're going to have a little bit more of an innovative work environment. Another thing that affects your company culture is obviously your locale, your national and your local government policies and laws. So obviously we're here in Illinois, we're in the US. So if we were in a different country, obviously our company culture would be different, but we are heavily influenced by the laws that govern our business and our organization. Another thing that affects your company culture is your rewards, your total rewards. So total rewards, just so you guys know, is your entire compensation, benefits, perks, all of that. So what attracts the candidate to you and keeps the employee working for you? Your total rewards program. So a lot of people think, especially in the cannabis industry, they think a paycheck is good enough. We find that in other industries, what's really rewarding is having perks, recognition, benefits, 401k, tuition reimbursement, even gym memberships. Like people really appreciate that you say value their health and well-being, and you're investing in that. So that affects your company culture, believe it or not. And then the last thing that affects your company culture is your disciplinary system. So, do you have a 3 strikes program, or are you lenient? Do you understand that people are human and they have families and things happen? What kind of disciplinary system have you set in place, and what kind of expectations do you have that have set your company culture? Now, there's a lot of different types of culture, but the main ones include leadership. So when you have a leadership culture, you focus strictly on the employee, helping them grow their career. So the best example I have for this is, and if I cut out, you guys can cut me off and let me know I cut out. I am in the boondocks. That's why I keep cutting out. But Enterprise Rent-A-Car is a really good example of that leadership company culture. Every single employee that works for Enterprise, they have what we would say like a career path, and they have one-on-ones on a regular basis. And their supervisor, whoever is doing their one-on-ones, wants to make sure that they're on the right track to hit those goals for their career path so they can get promoted. Another, I guess, company culture is traditional. Traditional, I would say, is like the stuffy business suit. Meetings always start on time. 3 strikes rule, that's traditional. Not being late for work and being chewed out for it. That's a very traditional company culture. You won't see that in a lot of innovative industries like technology. You probably see it more in business, finance, things like that. And then the last one, which I would probably say cannabis probably fits the most, the cannabis industry, is the innovative work company culture. So you'll see these environments where innovation is key to success. Like you have to be innovative in order to be a successful company in your industry, like technology. So Google would be a great example of the innovative company culture. Those company cultures like to embrace everyone's individuality and inclusivity at the same time. Usually when you walk into the floor, wherever the office is, the floor plans tend to be wide open. You don't see a lot of offices. So everyone can kind of hear everything. It feels like a team. People have piercings, people have tattoos that are showing. They wear jeans instead of suits. Being late to work isn't the end of, the end of your work in this environment. You may get talked to, but it's not a huge deal. That's the innovative work culture. So ineffective company culture will almost always result in a lot of turnover. So you'll lose employees on a regular basis. Your employees won't stay more than 6 to 8 months, a year, maybe year and a half. You have poor customer experiences every time, you're getting complaints from customers. You can't keep customers, things like that. Your employees are disengaged. They could care less whether or not your employees or your customers are satisfied or not. And then that results in lower morale. And then eventually that all will result in your profits and your revenues taking a hit as well. So it's really important that as you can see, company culture results in high profit, high morale, engaged employees, great customer service experience, and things like that. So whoever is going to be manning your human resources, your recruiting and all that good stuff, they have a few things that they can do to kind of foster a good company culture. They make sure that they themselves emulate what the values of the company are day by day. They are almost like your brand ambassador for the internal company culture at your firm. You make sure all your employees, your candidates, your new hires, candidates is really important. A lot of people forget about the candidates, but the employees and the new hires understand your company culture through effective communication. So you want to make sure every time you interview someone that they know what kind of company you are. People miss that for whatever reason. And I'm going to talk about it in the job description as well. People miss that in the job description. But you want to always communicate that brand, because you are basically in sales. When you're recruiting, it's a sales role. You're selling your organization and you're selling your position that's open. You want to make sure that the roles and the responsibilities for each position are clearly defined. You provide continuous learning and training. A lot of people forget about learning and training, and that's really important. People want to know that you're investing in them developing as an employee and as a professional. They don't want to be stagnant. They don't want to just kind of waste away and collect dust. They actually want to develop their skills, and they want to become better employees, hopefully to get, more money, more pay, to get promoted or whatever. You want to sustain a recognition program. So some companies do like the service rewards, like the length of service. How long have you been with the company? That doesn't really go over too well with millennials, which is heavily the cannabis industry. Millennials heavily are represented in the cannabis industry, especially in retail. But like rewards can be anywhere from, like gift cards for having great customer service and things like that. You can really be creative with your rewards program, but you want to make sure that that program doesn't die off. You want to be consistent with it. And then you want to administer performance management. Now, it's not your job as human resources to actually do the performance management and do the one-on-ones, but you want to make sure that whoever's responsible, those supervisors and those managers, executives, are actually conducting the one-on-ones, and that you're actually reviewing those performance KPIs to make sure that things are going smoothly and addressing any issues that come up. And then you have communication, just effective communication. As the human resources person, you want to make sure that you're the person people can come to be transparent and to effectively communicate whatever needs to be communicated. And then the last one is onboarding. Onboarding always gets just dropped by the wayside. I have no idea why. Onboarding is a way for you to almost act out your company culture for that new hire. So someone has accepted your job offer and it's now time to start. You should have a whole plan for them for the next 2 to 3 weeks of their first, basically them coming on as a new employee. That onboarding experience is going to determine whether or not they stay or they go in the next year or two. So just keep that in mind. Hi, Deborah. How are you? Okay. So what can human resources assess and develop company culture? So many organizations harness the power of employee experience surveys. Not in the cannabis industry, though. Very rarely are you going to see an employee experience survey. But I'm telling you, this is how you determine whether or not your company culture is failing or is a success. Okay, so you're going to create an assessment tool that says, hey, how are we doing as a company and what can we do better? Now, it's not necessarily going to say, I need more pay, but you're going to go through different topics like, how are our recognition and rewards programs? Do we effectively communicate as supervisors and managers in this company? Things like that. Those are the types of questions that you're going to have in this assessment. And that's how you're going to determine whether or not you have a great company culture or you have some work to do. Now, another part where people fall off, organizations fall off, after you get the responses, you have to analyze and actually communicate the results to the whole company in a town hall. So you get the results from your team and people say, we're not satisfied with our work. We actually want you guys to work more on perks and benefits. Like this company has benefits and we don't have anything. We just get paychecks. You know what I'm saying? From there, you want to work on your areas of opportunity. You want to create focus groups. Okay. So preferably you want the focus group to have, someone from every department. And then you want to make sure that your demographics are also being represented as well in the focus groups. Now, these are volunteers. You want to make sure they have different levels of seniority as well. And then you want to take action. So these people are going to suggest to you ways to solve those problems that have been communicated through the survey. And then you're going to try and take action and begin implementing the changes that they've suggested to improve your areas of opportunities that were addressed in the survey. So that's all we're going to talk about with company culture. Hopefully that all makes sense, but it's really important before you really start to get recruiting, you want to understand what your company culture is. So next we're going to talk about job descriptions. Believe it or not, the job description and the job posting are your opportunity to sell your company culture and the open role within your organization. So in fact, like I said, you want to think of all of your recruiting activities as sales activities. You are selling your organization and you want the best people to come work for you. Your goal is to sell the perfect candidate the opportunity, sometimes even when the candidate already has a job. And we're going to talk about what that means, being a passive candidate. Some people don't even think about passive candidates because they already have a job, but those are going to be your best candidates. So what are the components of a well-written job description? We have the job title, job duties, relationships, salary, skills, and competencies. Okay, you always want to work on the posting with whoever the candidate is going to report to, so the hiring manager, in order to maintain congruence in both of your expectations. So you have expectations as probably the business owner, but whoever's going to be supervising this candidate or this employee, they're also going to have expectations as well. So you want to make sure as you guys are working through the job description, and you can work on it in like a Google Doc together, you want to make sure that you guys can both agree on the duties and the skills and the competencies of this person when they come on board. So let's start with the job title. The job title is the first fundamental element of the job description. Okay. A great job title is going to accurately reflect the nature of the job. It reflects its ranking order with other jobs in the company. It doesn't exaggerate the importance of the role. Okay. It's not all cute and whatnot. It's free of gender or age implications. So a lot of companies like to get really cute with the titles, and it's cool sometimes, but you have to make sure you're not excluding certain demographics from the job opportunity. It's just that simple. Make sure your job title is generic enough that it can be compared to other jobs in the market or in your industry, so they can make sure that there's equity in pay and conditions of that job. Okay, so you don't have like a random job title that you made up that people can't really compare to anything else because it's made up. So when you also want your job title to be searchable, right? So when someone's looking for a job and they know what they're, I guess, qualified to do, they're going to search for certain roles: manager, supervisor, agent, whatever. You just want to make sure that you are keeping that in mind, because you're going to be using job boards and people are going to be searching on job boards. So just keep that in mind. Some common titles that you're going to hear in the cannabis industry: you got patient counselor, you got bud tender, edibles processor, lab director, quality manager, facility manager, edible chef, packaging associate, master grower, cultivation agent, dispensary manager, things like that. Like I said, some businesses like to get creative with the name. This can add to company culture. I'm not saying don't do it. It can add to company culture, but just be careful, because you want your job to be searchable on a job board. Okay. I didn't put this on here, but there's another section that I put like right under the title, and it's like a blurb, sort of like a little itty bitty paragraph just about the company culture, to entice the candidate to learn more about you guys. You never want the company to seem bland, boring, or uninteresting. So this is like that little blurb is your opportunity to say, hey, like, we're a dope company. This is what we do. This is what we focus on. This is why we'd be great for you to work at. You know, that's your opportunity to sell your company culture. Next is your job duties. Okay. The job description should contain a list of duties and responsibilities associated with the role, along with the amount of time expected to dedicate to that task. So sometimes you see like 20% data entry, 40% filing, all this other good stuff. Sometimes job descriptions have that. Make sure that your descriptions aren't more than 2 to 3 sentences, because then it gets really lengthy and people don't want to read all that. Okay. Your job duty should be outcome based, containing an action and an object and a purpose. So, example, this person will compile monthly reports allowing monitoring of the department's budget. That's a job duty for that particular role. You really don't want to have more than 15 of these duties written on the description, because once you go past 15, it's really overwhelming. So remember, you got like 2 to 3 sentences per job duty. So that's a lot for people to read. So try not to go over more than 15 duties. Now, the next section is skills and competencies. And it's really, honestly, what I would call the qualification, like skills and qualifications section of the posting. And that's when you nail down your absolutes and preferable skills and credentials for the ideal candidate. Okay, so they should be listed separately from each other. The skills and the competencies. So you'll have the skill. Most people put skills first and then qualifications after that, or you can switch it around, but most people put skills first. So skills are the activities that the person can perform based on what they've learned from past. It doesn't even have to be the same job that they did. They could have done it in another industry completely, but those are skills that they've garnered over their career, the life of their career. Competencies are more like traits or attributes that you expect the candidate to display in the role. An example of a skill is the ability to give effective presentations. It is a skill that can be learned through study and practice. An example of a competency is like strong communication, which is like an innate characteristics, I would say, more so like just natural to the person. It's not something that can necessarily be learned. Now, I would say in competencies and qualifications, I would also put like any degrees or credentials that you prefer, or preferences on like being bilingual or having knowledge in a certain topic or something like that. That's where I would put that. Now, next is your relationships. Relationships just really tells the candidate who they're reporting to and who they're going to be working with. So it comes in so that they can understand their role relative to everybody else in the company. This is why it's really important to have your organizational chart together and always updated as you start adding team members to your organization. Reporting lines, that's what they call it. Reporting lines, who you report to. Those clarify the responsibilities of the position by showing who the candidate reports to and then who reports to them if they have someone that actually reports to them. It's really important because of compliance issues, but you also want to give the candidate an insight on the hierarchical structure of the organization and how the position fits into it. Like, what's their role as a cog in the wheel, basically? Can they tell what that is in this section of the job description? It's a good idea to give an indication of
Shawnee, I think your sound went out again. Not yet. I saw your lips moving, but I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was like, it always goes out. So I'm hoping, did you hear about relationships?
I heard you say, because Sinette and I were texting, I heard you say it's a good indication. Like, I was listening close enough to hear the last words you said.
Yep, that's perfect. Okay. So that's where I left off. So the next section is salary. The question is, do you want to put salary or not? Okay. And this is going to depend on you, your organization, and the role that's open. Okay. Are you using competitive pay to attract the best candidates? Okay. Are you being competitive? Are you offering a really good rate for your pay? Or is your pay more so industry average because you're an up and coming company and you're a startup and you have bills to pay? That's going to determine whether or not you want to put that right on the posting, because sometimes you may miss a really good candidate if you just throw it out there and it's not competitive enough. So if your salary for the role is competitive based on other industry roles, definitely put the hourly rate up there because it's just going to attract more candidates and better candidates. But if you're running like neck and neck with other similar roles, you're in the same ballpark, you may want to wait until you get to the screening interview to discuss pay along with your total rewards system, your total rewards. So your compensation, your benefits, your perks, whatever sets you guys apart from the rest. You want to wait till your screening interview if that's the case. Remember, you're selling your position to the candidate. This is a sales role and you have to get into the mindset that you're selling your organization. So now we're going to talk about getting eyeballs on the job posting. I have a lot of opinions about this, so you guys will probably love this. Keep in mind, this is the cannabis industry, right? We got a few hurdles when it comes to posting the jobs and actually having the jobs visible, okay? And that's just because of the nature of the business. So candidates, basically, I'm gonna just be honest with you guys, candidates have to be looking for cannabis jobs in order to find your post because we're almost like shadow banned for the most part on the internet. And shadow ban just means that because it has something to do with cannabis and cannabis is federally illegal, it's not something you just stumble upon. You have to be looking for it. Same goes for Facebook, just so you guys know. If you're looking for Facebook groups that have to do with cannabis, there's hundreds out there, but you won't find them. You have to be invited to them. It really is irritating. So the good news is that federal legalization is just around the corner, right? Biden and Harris, eventually we will see some form of legalization, decriminalization coming soon. But still, these actions to a lot of seasoned cannabis professionals do not go unnoticed. Like, a lot of us know that Google and Facebook and all these nice little tech companies are really targeting the cannabis industry and stifling us. So I'll just be honest with you, like, as soon as we federally legalize, I will remember, and there will be a lot of other people that will remember as well. So you can post on Google, but it's not directly posting. It's like a aggregation. So They are one of the companies that wants nothing to do with cannabis. That is until we legalize, just keep that in mind. So they make it really difficult to post directly on Google Jobs. So you have to use an applicant tracking system or like another job board like ZipRecruiter to get your job posting migrated over to Google Jobs. Now, ZipRecruiter is not my favorite, but obviously that's how you're going to get your job onto Google, right? So that's the one good thing about ZipRecruiter. The only problem I have with ZipRecruiter is the quality of candidates. I find that folks that gravitate towards ZipRecruiter, I hope this is not taken the wrong way, but they seem lazy, okay? Why? Because ZipRecruiter attracts candidates that don't want to fill out a full application. They just want to throw in the resume. The resume may only have like a diploma on it. So ZipRecruiter, they have like a bare minimum requirement. Like, you know how when you go on some job boards, you have to put in your phone number, you got to put in your email, your resume, your cover letter, and all. It's not ZipRecruiter. You just throw up a PDF and they're like, okay, cool, you're good to go. You've been submitted. So what you'll find is the candidates will submit their resume and they'll literally just have their name and a diploma and nothing else. Like I'm not exaggerating. I'm being so serious when I say this. The good thing, like I said, about posting on ZipRecruiter is that it aggregates to Google and then you get more eyeballs on it. So that is the one good thing. Now, something I didn't list on this slide was Facebook. Okay. While Facebook is not cannabis friendly in the least bit, once you have a Facebook page for your company, you can set up your cannabis business so you can post your jobs or aggregate your job postings from your applicant tracking system onto your Facebook page, which is really nice. So if you want to share a job posting, or you want your friends, your family, your colleagues, other people in the industries to share your job posting, Facebook is really good for that. You just can't really get into advertising and whatnot with Facebook. So just keep that in mind. But it really does allow for word of mouth and social media sharing and promoting your open positions. Now, the next two are Indeed and LinkedIn, which are probably my favorite. Indeed, you can post a job. We all know that. But Indeed also has another service, and it's called Indeed Resume. And if I'm not mistaken, it's like $80 a month, but you can turn it off. You can turn the subscription on and off based on your sourcing projects. So whether or not you're sourcing for candidates. So remember how I said, this is a sales job. Recruiting is sales. This is where you really put your sales hat on. Okay. So with a service like Indeed Resume, you search for passive candidates. Passive candidates are going to be the folks that really have, first of all, they have jobs, but they're not looking for jobs. Those are your passive people. Okay. In my opinion, these people tend to be the best candidates for your opportunity. In fact, I had a sourcing project recently. I had to hire 4 people. 3 of them were passive. 3 of them were not looking for jobs. 3 of them were not looking for jobs. So Indeed Resume, you draft up a really nice message and then they save it as a template, and you talk about the opportunity, you talk about your job, your organization, whatever. And then you send the message as many times as you want to all the candidates that you feel fit the bill. Even though they haven't applied, you're messaging them. And then if they're interested, they will click a button that says they're interested. And what will happen is their resume will open up. You'll be able to see their phone number, their email, all this good stuff. And you can contact them directly to set up an interview. Okay. That is, in my opinion, the best form of recruiting. Okay. The last job board that I like a lot is LinkedIn. You do have to pay per job post for LinkedIn, but let me tell you why it's worth it. LinkedIn is the only, I repeat, only social media platform that has been accepting of the cannabis industry. The only one. So LinkedIn saw what Google, Facebook, and Instagram were not allowing on their platforms, and they took the opportunity to differentiate themselves from those other networks. So what you have is almost like a digital safe space for professionals in the cannabis industry that are watching for cannabis jobs on a regular basis. You can control how much you want to spend on your posting, and LinkedIn does the rest. Okay. So I get really highly qualified candidates from LinkedIn because that's where the industry is for the most part. So remember that project I was telling you I had to source for 4, 3 were passive. The other one was on LinkedIn. So just keep that in mind. Hopefully that's helpful when it comes to job posting. The next thing we'll talk about is pipeline management. And this is another place where people drop the ball. Pipeline management is really your candidate's life cycle. So it's really important for your brand to make a great impression on candidates. Remember, you're like the marketing department for employees. Think of that. Marketing for employees. Marketing for employees. You have a brand just like marketing has, except they're managing the brand for customers. You're managing the brand for candidates and employees. So your job is to keep candidates warm, keep employees happy, keep them retained, and reward them for great work. When you have a prospect, that's when someone that may have applied or that you reached out to hasn't quite screened, but you want them to do a screening interview so you can get to know them better. Okay. It's someone that you want to get to know to see if they're a great fit for the team. You always want to keep this list organized, right? So like if you have a whiteboard, I use whiteboards. A lot of recruiters use whiteboards because it's a great way to visualize everything. But if you have a project that you're working on, something you need to source for, you have these columns, right? You got a prospect column, a screening column, interview column, a references column, and a hired column. You want to put the names of the candidates in each column that fit that column, and you want to track their life cycle. It's really important. Now, it's someone that for the prospect, that's going to be someone that you want to get to know to see if they're a great fit. But once you set up a time to chat, then you want to move them to screening interview because now they're in the screening phase. Now, your screening interview is going to be 15 to 30 minutes. It's not going to be long. You don't want to waste your time on a screening interview because it's not that important. What you're trying to do is really see if it's a good fit. In fact, you don't even have to do the screening interview. Sometimes you can get depending on if you got an entry-level person or a part-time person that's helping you out, they can do a screening interview and they can pretty much tell you if it's a good culture fit or not, if it's someone that you trust within the organization. Now, it's a conversation about how you can get to know the candidate, see if they're a great culture fit. I call it a culture fit. You ask questions like, tell me a little bit about yourselves. It's very open-ended. They tell you whatever they want to tell you. Some people have the most random answers to that question. Ask them what you currently do. Why are you looking for opportunities elsewhere? Why are you even interested in the cannabis industry? This is the screening interview. Then if they do well, if you think they have shown enough competency and personality to possibly be a culture fit, then you want to set them up for an interview. So you're going to move them to the next column. And this is going to depend on you, the role, your organization, but you may have 1 interview, you may have 2 interviews, you may have even 4 or 5 interviews. It depends on you, the level of the role and your organization, like what you guys do as an organization. So in the interview process, you want to really test their knowledge. You want to test their experience and you want to understand their answers to situational, circumstantial, and hypothetical questions. This is what we call behavioral interviews. You can tell a lot about someone's knowledge and their competency and skill set by doing behavioral interviews. So I'm going to give you an example of a behavioral interview question. It's a really common one. Tell me about a time when you've gone above and beyond at work and what were the results? What happened? If you have someone who either has never gone above and beyond at work or doesn't have enough work experience, they're going to have a hard time answering that question. And you can dig deeper and deeper and deeper. You can dig into the weeds as far as that particular role and what that role day to day looks like and ask behavioral type questions on that role. So it's up to you how you want to do your behavioral interviews. Now, the next section of the candidate life cycle is the references and the due diligence. So we'll talk more about due diligence in the next section and why it's so important. But basically, the last portion is the disposition, and that's hired or not hired. So based on how the references go, how that due diligence goes, you decide whether or not you want to extend an offer to pass on the candidate. Okay. And then you start your onboarding. So now you got a whole nother process, a whole nother checklist onboarding to do. Remember, this is about your brand. Okay. So never not respond to a candidate that you interviewed and done backgrounds on. You've gone so far to do backgrounds. You interviewed them twice. You've talked to them, you emailed them, and now you're not responding, they're following up on the status of their application. Always be transparent. Invite them to apply again for other opportunities in the future. This is your brand. Okay, it's just like the marketing department. This is your brand, and you are a salesperson. So the last section is due diligence as the hiring manager for your open opportunity. Due diligence is a little tricky for the cannabis industry. I'm going to tell you guys why. But the reason why a lot of recruiters and hiring managers do due diligence is to avoid being catfished during the recruitment process. Okay, it happens, trust me. But you execute due diligence to make sure the candidate has been honest and truthful every step of the way. And if there's anything that indicates to you that they haven't been truthful, even about something small, it's a red flag, right? There shouldn't be anything they're not truthful about in the beginning. So what's a good rule of thumb for the reference checks? Okay, reference checks can't hurt really for any role, even if it's an entry-level role. But if anything, what the reference check is doing is solidifying what you may already know or feel about the candidate as far as their skill level and their fit for the company. So ask for like at least 3 professional references and always ask for a phone number and email. You can always send a templated email out to set up a time to do a reference call. So in the call, you ask the reference how they know the candidate, when they worked together, what was the work relationship? So were they the supervisor? Were they the coworker? Were they the direct report of that candidate? And what kind of employee the candidate was? Were they dependable? Were they professional? Were they on time? Would you hire them yourself if you were searching to fill a role? Those are the types of questions you want to ask on a reference check. Next section is backgrounds. It's a big issue in the cannabis industry given the nature of our business, okay? And a lot of people who truly deserve to work in this industry because they've been affected by the war on drugs, unfortunately have charges that are related to cannabis offenses. So some, and I'm not joking, some people have even gotten the job, accepted the offer, started and applied for their agent card, like dispensary agent or cultivation agent card, and it goes up to the state and the state denies it and they have to be released from the job. This has happened before in Illinois. Okay, so it's a huge gap. Hopefully through lobbying, we can get some of that changed, but it's a problem right now. So the people that are being most affected by the war on drugs throughout their lives aren't even necessarily eligible to work for these larger companies. But you as a business owner, you set your own parameters for backgrounds. Okay, I will say really the only big red flag for me and for a lot of businesses in the cannabis industry are charges that have anything to do with money. Okay. And the reason being is because the cannabis industry is a heavy cash industry. Now, if the role doesn't touch money, like if it's not even retail, it's processing and they're on the packaging team, that has nothing to do with money. But if you're a dispensary agent or you're an accountant or accounting assistant or whatever, that's probably a red flag. Anything that has to do with money laundering, anything has to do with money, that's a red flag. Most smaller employers overlook cannabis charges due to the nature of our business. It's a cannabis business. So most smaller employers don't really care. The next section is credentials. When you're running a background to verify someone's credentials, you're just confirming that whatever they put on their resume regarding their degrees or credentials is true. That's it. This is really only done at a senior level or a job where you're requiring them to have a degree. So if you say qualifications must have a bachelor's degree, you're probably going to do a credential check to make sure that that degree is valid. Or if it's someone that you're hiring executive role for, you're probably going to do a credential check. Now, the last is the drug testing. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, this is not really done in the cannabis industry. The only time I see drug testing being done is like in driving roles. So you're in logistics for the cannabis industry, or you're in quality or lab testing or something like that, because of the nature of that specific role, not the company as a whole, just that particular role. With any other role in the industry, because it's cannabis, it doesn't really require drug testing at all. In fact, I probably would imagine once we federally legalize, drug testing is going to undergo a huge change. That would be my assumption. So my company does offer full service life cycle management and recruiting for cannabis and hemp businesses, and we handle HR administration, including onboarding, handbooks, benefits administration, and payroll. But other than that, I'm done. Does anyone have any questions for me about recruiting and HR?
So while we wait for questions, because typically, well, if you could type them in your Q&A. I'm gonna ask you. You really think that we might actually see it get federally legalized? You think it'll make it through the Senate?
No, I don't. Not with So I think the MORE Act passed House. It never does pass Senate, but I think once Biden and Harris get in, they're gonna pass it another way.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Deborah's on the phone, or Deborah's on the call. She can. Deborah, what do you think? I don't know if you know. Do you know Deb, Dylan?
No, I've never met Deb.
So Deb is also an educator. She educates at Chicago State, and I want to say another college. I can't remember where else, but she is. She focuses on making sure that our older population is also a part of the cannabis industry and is not left out.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I think
Deborah's mic. So
I think that it could happen under the Biden-Harris administration. However, it's not a top priority. They have so many other issues that supersede and have far more impact on the general population than cannabis, that maybe sometime in late 2022, early 2023, you know, I mean, I my crystal ball is in the shop right now, but if I'm also going to say that because of the fact that, you know, the unemployment, the race, the pandemic issues, you know, the whole economy, international relationships, you know, all of this, you know, and there's sufficient enough lobbyists, you know, in there jumping up and down about cannabis, you know, and I'm sure Boehner, you know, because he knows so many people, you know, he's in there, you know, but the fact that for them to deschedule it, you know, and the impact on IRS 280E and that revenue being lost, where right now the government is going to be they're giving out a lot of dollars, but they have to figure out a way to recoup some of it.
mm-hmm.
You know, and so I don't see it happening in the near future, but I do see it happening within the first 4 years of the Biden-Harris administration. I do see that, but don't count on it within the next 24 months, I would say.
Yeah.
Okay, and to me that makes sense, because I know it passed House.
It's passed House so many times.
Yeah,
it's passed
right,
House.
exactly. But I'm like, with McConnell over the Senate, was, you know, and where we are with the number of seats, I wasn't hopeful that it would become law. But if it's done some other way, whether it's executive order or something like that, then that obviously would be different. That opens a lot of other doors. So. Okay.
Well, now from a criminal justice reform standpoint, you know, when you alluded to the possibility of them doing it another way, I think that even before they deschedule it, they have to look at the impact, particularly on Blacks, as part of the Black Lives Matter movement, as part of the 13th Amendment revisions. I think that's where you're going to start seeing some movement on expungements and releasing of people from jails. Then that's going to beg the question, okay, well, now that we let them out, what are we going to do with them?
Yep.
We have to create jobs, and it only makes sense to create if that's what they were arrested for, that means that they know a lot about it, so how about jobs in the cannabis and or hemp industry?
Right.
And so that may move them more towards creating more opportunities under the Farm Bill Act, more so than under descheduling cannabis.
Yeah, I can see that. And if you look at the path that things have gone in Illinois, with hemp was legalized a while ago before cannabis even came up. So
yeah, but even IDOA specifically has in their regulation, you can't get a hemp license if you're a felon.
Yep.
So that was put in there on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be clear, on purpose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Someone sent me an email after our session last night and actually asked a question. Well, if it gets legalized on the federal level, what would happen with us as licensees? And, my response was the state is going to do what, if you look at what the state has done with other substances, I'm not going to say controlled substances, but the substances, whether that's tobacco or even alcohol, you still have to have a license in order to.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have a license to have a cannabis-based business in the state of Illinois, regardless of whether or not it's legal federally or not. To me, business perspective, the biggest impact that I would see federally is the tax law.
Yep, and I mean the finances.
Your mic dropped out again, Shawnee. We couldn't hear anything you said. Say something now, because I think you changed. Shawnee, can you hear me? Nope.
I'm sorry, you didn't hear me?
Oh, I hear you now.
I said the money, just the money alone, like being able to get a bank account and a loan, like that is going to be huge for a lot of cannabis businesses. I think it's a barrier to entry to me.
Absolutely.
Well, I think if they were to deschedule, I don't know if my mic is unmuted.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's still on.
Well, I think the opportunity in Illinois, if they were to deschedule it, even though they're requiring a license, I think it would be an opportunity for the black and gray market to become more legitimate.
That would be great.
They would have to be creative, and I think they can be, so that they can operate their businesses without a license, without one of the, let's say, traditional licenses, okay, but be creative enough to operate in such a way that they're not illegal if it's federally legal.
Well, weren't they talking about in the city of Chicago, like they were kind of tossing around that the street dealer's license, or was it panhandler? What was it?
Peddler?
Yeah, well, it was something like that. But again, if you're a street dealer or a panhandler, you don't want to go up and give your name, address, and all of that, But I do think that there could be such things as a pop-up license, or a seasonal, some type of seasonal license, where you are given an opportunity under
or even just a venue license. I mean, the consumption, I'm still waiting on consumption to take off, and it's just kind of hasn't done anything.
Well, but again, that would require, the state come in and regulate and tax it and all that other kind of crap. But if they could do the pop up, if they could come up with some kind of way, where, like almost like a gig license, or a gig permit, not so much a license, a gig
the event
permit.
Industry has it. Yeah.
Yeah, that would only probably play in Chicago. I don't see that happening statewide.
Yeah. Just
the way they wrote the bill, at least for consumption's sake, it is left up to the municipalities. But I agree.
Yeah. Okay. Well, nobody's written any questions.
No questions.
So, yeah. So that means you were thorough in covering everything.
Well, if you guys do need to reach out to me, feel free. My email is Shawnee@IllinoisEquityStaffing.com. Hoping to see you guys in other arenas and other places at other events because I'm always around. And so is Deborah. So
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for the conversation as well. It's always great to talk with people who are much more closely aligned with everything that's going on and advocating and lobbying and have their ear to the ground to be able to hear, your thoughts and have you all share your thoughts, because I'm not an expert in this industry. I got into this just because I'm an entrepreneur that likes to help entrepreneurs, not necessarily because I'm passionate about cannabis. So people ask me these questions all the time, and I'm like, well, I don't know. I know what makes logical sense from a business perspective, but to be able to say, well, what's going to happen in this situation, like if it becomes legal federally? Well, from a business perspective, the state is going to do this.
Oh, and I will tell you guys, from a business perspective, you'll see all of the heavy hitters and the folks with all the capital come in. So the Anheuser-Busch, the Constellation brands, the 7-Elevens, they're just waiting. And they're waiting with pockets ready to go.
I mean, you saw it with CBD, right? Like, it's like, okay, one day you couldn't get CBD, the next day they're selling CBD Target, at the video CVS. Store, CVS, everywhere, gas stations, everywhere.
Yep. So they're waiting.
Yep. So, okay. Well, Merry Christmas to everyone. We don't have anything else planned before the new year. So if we do end up doing something else or scheduling something else into January, I will let you know. And of course, if I hear anything come out of the state, which I'm not betting on, but if I do, of course, I will pass that information on.
All right. Sounds good. Happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you both.